So I want you to open up your handouts to page 4, and you'll see discussion circle, the process. I'm going to go over the process, and then I'm going to let you know what you get to read. Normally, I have 4 people doing this at a time. If you're working with younger children, you can have them do things in pairs. So if I had like 2nd graders, Melissa and I might do it together, and then we would do one of the categories. And you teach them how to do this over a process. Does that make sense? But starting in a 3rd or 4th grade, especially 4th grade, I can do this full discussion circle. And this is how it works. If I've got 4 of us, one person is the personal connector. They're going to lead a conversation for about 4 minutes. There's sample questions here like, what does this information have to do with you or others? Why do we want them to start with that as the beginning of a conversation? Personal connections. So if I'm leading this group of 4, I would ask Ashley a question, Alana, and Jessica, and then I would answer it myself. That's about 4 minutes. About. Everybody good with that so far? 2nd person picks it up. She's the topic connector. What did you learn about our topic? Did you learn anything about nutrition by reading this? Or general poverty? Or anything about our specific topic or the topic in general? She's going to ask each person. The 3rd person's the service connector. Yeah? What's going on here that needs to be fixed or is being fixed? Gosh, there's 2 ideas in this that I never thought about. So it's helping us look at it from that angle. And the 4th person's what more do we need to learn about? But there's sample questions that can be adapted. After kids do it for a couple of times, what do you think happens?
It becomes their thinking process.
It becomes a thinking process. And then there's a page on the next page called Discussion Circle where they can keep notes. Kids have really responded well. So, normally there's 4 people. Everybody can see why, but we're going to extend it a little bit. Now, typically, especially when I teach, I have everybody read the same thing. We're not doing that today. We're going to read different things. How many of you learned something from what you read, or made you think about something? Okay, so what we're going to do now is launch into the literature, the discussion circles. Go for it. Any thoughts or response to doing the discussion circle? Anything, was it helpful? What thoughts do you have? Did it help answer any questions? The reading, anything, any thoughts?
It just sparked discussion, even though maybe we didn't say exactly, it just got us talking about the issue and opening new ways of thinking.
Good. With kids, they usually follow a little more closely, and it lets every child, or maybe not, I don't know, you did it with your 7th graders.
No, I was saying like they're better at it.
Yeah, they are, because they're better at following our directions, but what's good about it is it gets 100% of that 100% going. And every kid, if you have a child who's especially shy, they can still, with a little coaching, do 4 minutes of running a conversation. So everybody gets on this, gets into it. Anyone else have a thought? Yeah.
I noticed that at least in our discussion circle, everything was sort of raising more questions than it was answering.
Yes, and that's the sign of a really good investigation, that you're ending up at the end with more questions than you started with. Because you can't run out of questions. You just end up finding which ones you're going to follow. Which question, because every good question is ultimately going to lead you down the road to more questions. Yeah.
I was just going to say, like, this whole kind of module from start to finish, where you come up with the definition and you have the 4 corners and the questions and then the discussion. I'm thinking of like a student who it might be the end of the day, you might be sort of checked out, you might have missed certain things, but it just keeps kind of hitting on similar, as much as there's new questions being raised, it's also kind of just hitting multiple times on this topic so much that, like, I feel if I was a student and I, occasionally checked out for a minute or 2, I'd be able to come back and not feel intimidated like I missed something.
Good.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think the structure of the exercise in terms of discussion group actually promotes some creativity or just making sure you're hearing from all the various points. Sometimes when a discussion is just left open-ended, you end up hearing from those 1 or 2 people that might be inclined to share heavily. But this way, we're going around, we're really hearing all voices.
Right. Otherwise, Hermione Gringold's the only one who's kind of talking all the time. So we have to shift it. Yeah.
If I could just add to that, I agree. To go around the table and to talk with people, and an individual is coming from their experience, and that's what informs them. And even if something slightly different, like you said, I don't really think that that's the case about homeless people. it gives me at least the pause to go,
Yeah.
and I saw other people around, I see it right now, other people around the table, you know, it just expands, it expands your mind.
Yes.
I think using the different text helps to reduce repetition of answers, which is a huge issue in discussions with like middle school kids. And so I think that was really,
Just say what everybody else said.
let's just say what everybody else is, but when everyone has a different access point because they all read something differently, then
And I was explaining to, what your name?
Travis.
Travis, that sometimes, like if I wanted to use that longer article, I would divide it into 4 sections, so each person reads a different part of the article. So they're not reading 8 pages, you're gonna read the first, because there's some natural breaks and things like that. So you're gonna read 2 pages, you're gonna, or 1 article, so I do that a lot with kids. It saves a lot of time, and kids could go, oh, I don't wanna read an 8-page article, but I can read this much. So it just gets that comfort zone for them. Then everyone's responsible to bring that piece to the table. Yeah.
Concerning time, I feel that perhaps, especially when you're in a group where there's somebody willing to talk a lot more, democracy of the clock, making sure that everybody has the exact same window of time to talk in, like everyone has a minute, so that somebody doesn't go on forever, and that somebody else who might not necessarily jump in has their designated time. I think that's.
And we review those things ahead of time. We talk about shared time. All these things you can break it down and discuss.